The hiring bar in software engineering in Germany. After conducting dozens of interviews on both sides of the table, I've noticed something interesting. Germany's software engineering hiring process is completely different from the US playbook. No marathon LeetCode sessions, no million-user system design gauntlets. Instead, it's practical, real-world focused and, honestly, way more chill. But that doesn't mean the bar is low. It just means we test different things, and the expectations shift dramatically as you climb the ladder from junior to staff engineer. The junior intern gauntlet project's over pedigree. Back in 2019, I was hunting for a working student position. The first brutal realization? Just getting an interview was harder than I thought. My CV looked fine to me, but companies weren't biting. So I iterated, tweaked my resume, built a portfolio website, added actual projects I could demo, not just bullet points claiming I knew React. I made sure everything was live, clickable, and impressive looking. Research shows that hiring managers want to see how you think and work through your portfolio projects, not just polished code samples. Did it scientifically improve my callback rate? I can't prove it with numbers, but it felt like night and day. Once I finally landed interviews, the formats varied wildly. One place just had a casual chat and offered me the job on the spot. Another gave me a take-home assignment, build a full CRUD web app with a front end and database in 1 week, then presented. I remember that take-home clearly. The code wasn't elegant. I didn't have perfect separation of concerns or clean abstractions, but it worked. The front end looked slick. It had sorting, filtering, all the bells and whistles. I demoed it confidently, explained my choices, and passed. Fast forward to 2025, and I'm now on the other side of the table interviewing juniors and interns. The bar hasn't changed much, at least not in our team. But here is what has changed. Every CV looks incredible now. Everyone's apparently a full-stack wizard who drove 40 performance improvements and led cross-functional initiatives. Thanks AI-powered resume builders. One study found that AI resume assistants led to a 300% increase in applications at some tech companies. Then they walk in for the practical task and reality hits. We keep it simple. We ask candidates to build a small CRUD REST API that writes to a file, SQLite or Postgres. We watch how they structure their code. Do they validate inputs? Do they recognize race conditions when writing to a file? Can they explain why they made certain choices? Once it works, if it works, we probe a bit deeper. How would you add authentication? What about authorization? If you had more time, what would you improve? How would you make this observable in production? The passing bar is straightforward, build something functional and explain it clearly. If the explanation is weak or they can't articulate their decisions, we don't hire them. We know everyone uses AI these days. That's fine, but we're hiring the human, not the autocomplete engine. The mid-senior maze title: Inflation and Deeper Dives. Here is where things get messy. In Europe, and especially in Germany, job titles mean almost nothing. You can be a senior engineer at one company after 3 years of coasting. At another company, that same title requires staff-level impact and scope. Title inflation has become rampant, with about 25 of jobs previously classified as junior now being classified as senior. At my current company, our mid-level engineers would easily be considered senior elsewhere, and our senior engineers, that's a staff-level role at most places. It's wild. The task we give mid and senior candidates is identical to the junior task. Same simple CRUD API. The difference? We don't stop there. Once they finish, we go deep, really deep. We probe fundamentals. We test their understanding of distributed systems, databases, HTTP semantics, concurrency, error handling. Small inaccuracies can lead to a no hire. And obviously, the code has to work. I've seen other teams take a different approach. Instead of a coding task, they do system design. Not the design Instagram for a billion users nonsense you see on YouTube. More like design a notification service for our actual product. It's grounded in real problems the team has faced. Companies like Stripe focus on practical questions that originate with the work the engineers do every day, not abstract algorithmic puzzles. Scaling matters, but we're not talking millions of concurrent users. Just enough complexity to see how you think. The bar here isn't about memorizing algorithms or regurgitating patterns. It's about depth. Do you actually understand how things work? Can you explain trade-offs? Can you build something solid without hand-holding? If you can't, we move on. The staff architect shift leadership meets system design. This is where it gets interesting. At the staff level, the job fundamentally changes. You're not just writing code anymore, you're designing systems. You're leading a team of 6 to 10 engineers. You're responsible for shipping high-quality products on time. You're the person who makes sure nothing breaks, and if it does, you're the one figuring out why. As Will Larson describes in his book Staff Engineer, you're far more likely to change your company's trajectory by growing the engineers around you than through personal heroics. The interview reflects that shift. We still give a coding task because we've learned the hard way that many architects and staff engineers can't code anymore. And in our world, you still need to. But the coding portion is table stakes. You have to pass it, but it won't get you hired on its own. The real test is system design, and not just any system design. We want to see you think about scaling, reliability, maintainability, observability. We want to hear how your past experience shapes your decisions. We want to learn something from you during the interview. If you're just parroting patterns you memorized, well, no. From my experience at other companies, the format is similar. It's less of a structured interview and more of a deep technical discussion. We probe specific problems. We ask how you'd solve them. We see if you can think creatively under pressure. The coding tasks are always easy and non-LeetCode. They're simplified versions of real problems we've faced, designed to fit in 45 to 60 minutes. The bar at this level isn't just about technical depth. It's about judgment. Can you make the right call when there's no obvious answer? Can you lead without being a bottleneck? Can you design systems that don't collapse under their own weight? If you can do all that, you're in. Conclusion. The hiring bar in Germany and Europe feels lower than in the US, at least on the surface. We don't do marathon LeetCode sessions or whiteboard performances for imaginary million-user systems. We focus on real problems, practical skills, and how you think under pressure. But don't mistake different for easy. The bar is high. It's just high in different ways. For juniors, we care about fundamentals and the ability to learn. For mid and senior engineers, we dig deep into your technical knowledge. For staff engineers, we expect leadership, judgment, and rock-solid system design jobs. And because there is no centralized hiring playbook, every company and every team does things their own way. That means you can't just grind LeetCode and call it a day. You need to actually know your craft. You need to be fluent in programming, comfortable discussing trade-offs, and capable of designing systems that don't fall apart. If you're preparing for interviews in Germany, focus on the fundamentals. Write clean code. Understand distributed systems. Read the classics Alex's System Design Interview book, which the pragmatic engineer calls the most real-world systems design book for teaching concepts step by step. But remember, we're not following a rigid framework here. It's a conversation, a discussion. And the most important thing you can bring to the table is real experience and genuine understanding. Because at the end of the day, We're not hiring your resume, we're hiring you.